Maintenant, je pense qu'on ne va pas garder quelques temps pour la discussion générale. Je vais peut-être demander à nos... alors, il y a eu beaucoup de Français récemment, qui a rendu les choses peut-être un peu plus difficiles. Mais vous parlez tous parfaitement français,
We could switch back to English.
So we may start this discussion in English by asking you to react maybe at your...
We should keep this short, I think, but maybe I can launch the discussion with a question to our foreign speakers and to everybody who spoke at this meeting. There's one aspect we didn't speak about, which is whether it makes sense to scan multiple subjects at the same time, because after all, economics is about social interactions. And so I wonder whether any of you want to react to this concept, which may be just a hype of hyper-scanning, scanning multiple brains together and seeing how they synchronize or react to each other's signals.
Does everybody know what happens with these hyper-scanning experiments? So you'll take two scanners and two subjects, and you'll have subjects playing against each other, and they'll both be being scanned at the same time. You might get different signals from the brain of a trustee versus an investor, for example, or various different situations. So when I've spoken to Reid about it, I can't quite make out. It seems to me that he saves a lot of time doing it that way, and he saves having to have a lot of fake confederates. But I'm not sure that I can work out quite what else he gets out of it, even when speaking to him, because any information that is conveyed that one brain has about the other brain can only come through the stimulus. And so it seems to me that that analysing one brain's activity in terms of the other brain's activity must, by definition, be worse than analysing it with reference to the stimulus that's come from the other brain. I mean, I don't know, so it seems to me logically impossible that you would get any more information by relating the two pieces of brain activity together than you would by going through the intervening stimulus. And if you're going to go through the intervening stimulus, then there's no need to have them both in the scanner at the same time. You might have one in the scanner with a confederate and then reverse the situation and have the other in a scanner with a confederate. And so it seems to me that what you gain is that you gain time, essentially. But unless you can imagine a situation where somebody makes a very unlikely decision, and you want to, and only one subject in 10 might make that decision, but you want to image the results whenever people do. I mean, I don't know, but that seems to be...
Well, I think I largely agree with you, actually, on this point. The vast majority, I don't think there is much that can be done that could not be done by having a projection of the subject to just one person sitting in the scanner. However, I would not exclude that there might be a few surprises, especially in the synchronization between two different brains. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to react to that.
Yeah, just briefly, these are experiments that are running in the lab at the moment. This is not related to neuroeconomics as such, but to imitation. So we have two subjects and we record their EEG at the same time. And then the real question is what happens when subjects imitate each other. When they breach imitation, they just do things with their hands, in particular, that are not related to each other, or when one is leading and the other is imitating, on where they are acting simultaneously. And in this particular case of social interactions, I think it really makes sense to record the brain activity from the two subjects at the same time.
So I think that it's definitely a different situation in EEG when you have so many more stimuli about the individual that you have access to because you can see them, they're not in a scanner. But I still don't quite understand why... So what analysis will you be doing that will inform you about... that will be informative, that will relate the activity of one brain to the activity of another brain, given that that second brain itself does not have access to the activity patterns from the first?
Oh, no, it's just a matter that people are reacting one to the other. I wouldn't admit that you could do that with a video. with someone watching the video. But then, if it's a video, then there is not this idea that you are interacting with someone.
Okay, but you could also just interact with somebody, but only one of them have EEG on their head at the same time, and you can look at the EEG of the imitee or the imitator separately. Why do you need to correlate the brain activity of one with the other?
What's interesting that social interactions is not something stable. It's something that the one that imitates is the one that will be leading the action 2 seconds later. So if you really want to understand the dynamics of social interaction, it's interesting to have the two brains scanned at the same time.
But I don't understand.
Because it's not a stable state.
That's fine. So I can play exactly the same game, and this person is sometimes the imitator, sometimes being imitated. It's fine. I can analyze them. I can analyze that brain depending on the behavior. I don't understand why you need to know the relationship between the brain activity in one person and the brain activity in another person, given that the brain in one person doesn't know the activity in the other. The only information he has is the stimuli that he sees.
It's just a matter of being better at understanding. For instance, if you see a change in the brain patterns of both subjects before a change in the social interactions, for instance, it suggests that people
suggests that one brain has access to the brain activity of another
not
without
at
the
all.
stimuli.
It's just that people are able to analyze information that are much more subtle, that one do what the experts that rate the imitation patterns are doing. That's just the point, that people are much more subtle than what is currently done. It's just analyzing the body language.
So you would agree that if you're not passing all that stimuli information, but if you're passing only the play of the individual, then there can't be any point in doing it. But if the individuals can actually see each other, and they might have access to more information than we as an experimenter have access to, then you might see evidence of that in their brain signals. That's what you're saying, I think.
I think we should give the microphone perhaps to Peter, who wants to add something.
Colin and Peter, you want to react to anything? Okay. At the end of the day, what have you learned? Have you changed your mind on some issues?
Next question? Should I respond to the hyperspanning scanning question? And, let me first off, because when we replayed the markets, financial markets in the scanner, we actually were thinking about an issue of whether we actually needed a market running concurrently with the scanning. Because we were really concerned whether it makes a difference whether the subject is looking at past data, which is what we did now, as opposed to concurrent where nobody knows, neither the experimenter nor the other people in the market nor the person in the scanner, where things are going. I think that's also relevant for games. Replaying, putting a subject in a scanner and telling that this person is going to play against people who have played in the past may be different from actually concurrent play, right? No.
Yes.
You mean in a different scan, right? But two people in.
Play against a real I'm happy that it's different to play against a real person. But why do you have to scan that person at the same time?
Yes. So go to now the market setting, right? So you insist on playing a market, putting somebody in the scanner concurrently, unlike what we did. Now you may be interested actually in looking at two different persons in that market. Who play the two different roles, like one is a specialist and the other, or But I need to run the market concurrently, right? So if you insist on, so you're referring to games, okay? So you have, or actually I could say a 3-person game, right? So if you now insist to play a 3-person game, and you want to make sure that all the people are there. When one of the persons is scanned, I can imagine you may want to scan a second person of the 3 persons in the game, right? And then you need it. Right?
There may be a different concept here.
Yeah, I think my view is kind of like Stanislas, that first of all, the efficiencies are often very substantial. Suppose you want to study 40 people trading in markets which may have bubbles in them. You're going to pay for 40 subjects, and if you need groups of 5 people at a time, basically all the subjects outside the scanner are typically wasted. Although we've done some studies, for example, some that I showed you today, where one person is in the scanner and they're playing another person who's outside. And one advantage of that is that you can see if the behavior actually changes as a function of being inside a scanner versus not being in a scanner, which goes a fairly long way toward addressing concerns about people are getting tired or it's loud or distracted or something like that. So far, I don't think I've seen any results reported in which within the scanner behavior and sort of controlled, I call them extras, like we're in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and the people outside the scanner are kind of extras, who are just there to support the main star, which is the person whose brain you're looking at. And usually the behavior looks very similar, which is kind of reassuring. Probably that's not going to be true for every task and so forth, but so far it looks good. The way I think of it, like a statistician, is if you scan 2 people versus 1, you have 2 time series of data. And the value of hyperscan, if there is much, besides this efficiencies, which we kind of agree on, is if the combination of the 2 time series enables you to do something that you can't, looking at 1 time series at a time, which in kind of experimental psychology terms means there's some kind of interaction effect of the time series. I don't have any great ideas of what that might be. Sometimes it could be that simply aggregating it, just like we do in event-related design, aggregating up lots of signals might give us better predictions than simply having 1 time series, if they're synchronized. Again, it seems kind of second order, given how expensive things are to do. The other thing would be a case in which the collective behavior really is not just sort of the sum of the individual behaviors. So think about something like having a conversation. If I'm talking and you're paying attention, the only way an outside observer, one way an outside observer would be able to see that would be to see joint activation in language regions of the brain or something like that. Now, it could be that self-report would do quite well on that, or recall measures afterwards. One person's talking in the scanner and the other person is listening outside, and later you ask them to recall parts of the conversation. If they can't, you say they probably weren't participating in the conversation. But to me, that's sort of the general recipe. You need something which having 2 or more time series can predict some dependent variable better than a cheaper method. And so far, nobody's had a really knockout great result. But it would be, I tell Reed that this is, and students, there's a big prize available for you to thinking of a really cool result. And then it would energize people that maybe this is a technique worth using. But I think it's reasonable to be skeptical until somebody has a really terrific kind of killer app that's necessary.
Thank you. J'ai coupé la parole tout à l'heure à 2 demandes d'intervention. Est-ce que vous pouvez vous exprimer maintenant, même si l'orateur n'est plus là pour vous répondre? Mais je suppose que c'est des remarques générales qui...
Oui, tout à fait. If you don't mind, I'll make label my question in French. It's easier. Quand même, dans la théorie économique, il y a cette fameuse théorie de l'équilibre général. Et si vous lisez Debreu, par exemple, il vous dit, finalement, en matière économique, l'expérimentation est très maigre. Il n'y a rien, il le dit. Et donc, il se dit, finalement, puisque l'expérimentation est maigre, on va se contenter d'avoir des raisonnements qui, formellement, sont corrects. Et on peut faire confiance à Gérard Debreu pour avoir des raisonnements formellement corrects, puisque c'est un très bon mathématicien. Mais au bout du compte, tous les raisonnements sur l'équilibre général, qui pour moi sont un peu une mythologie qu'on a construite ces 20 dernières années, reposent sur les hypothèses de Bentham et d'Edgeworth, notamment sur l'agrégation des préférences, et toute cette construction sur la psychologie, parce que c'est bien ça, de l'homo economicus. Alors, ce qui pourrait être intéressant, justement, dans l'approche neuronale, c'est de savoir si, au fond, on peut soumettre au test la psychologie de l'homo economicus, donc sous 2 aspects. L'aspect de la motivation individuelle, la recherche donc de son utilité maximale, pour résumer Edgeworth, et l'aspect échange social, c'est-à-dire le passage par le marché, le partage par l'échange pour maximiser cette utilité. Alors, c'est ça que je voudrais savoir si donc les neurologues ou les personnes, les scientifiques des neurosciences ont exploré ces deux aspects.
Bien, oui, il y a une question qui est lancée aux neurologues. Est-ce qu'ils font des expériences? Moi, en ce qui concerne, je voudrais juste rebondir sur votre question et aussi en même temps sur ce que disait Bernard Valizer. Moi, je ne crois pas que la neuroéconomie est une rupture totale avec le programme de l'économie et avec. Je crois que Samuelson disait, je ne sais pas si c'est vrai, mais je crois que Samuelson disait, l'homo economicus est un mauvais modèle. Mais c'est le meilleur modèle tant qu'on n'aura pas une théorie sérieuse du cerveau. Alors, est-ce qu'on lui a prêté cette affirmation ou est-ce qu'il l'a faite? Je n'en sais rien. Mais c'est pour dire qu'au fond, la neuroéconomie paraissait, et doit toujours paraître à Samuelson, comme un prolongement normal de la théorie économique, enfin une théorie économique qui voudrait s'améliorer en quelque sorte. Sur les passages empiriques, je vais repasser peut-être la parole tout à l'heure. Je crois que ce que font les neuroéconomistes, c'est effectivement de nature empirique. Je crois que tu ne me contredirais pas là-dessus.
Oui, je pense qu'on a vu plusieurs exemples très beaux aujourd'hui. Je vais simplement dire que de mon point de vue, il n'y a pas vraiment de domaine de la neuroéconomie qui soit différent de l'économie comportementale, au sens où la psychologie contribue autant que la neuroimagerie. Je crois enfin, c'est une erreur de penser que la neuroimagerie est un domaine séparé de la psychologie. C'est ce que j'essaye de défendre dans mon cours. Toutes les expériences qu'on a vues aujourd'hui dépendent de façon très étroite d'une excellente conception expérimentale qui dit du domaine de la psychologie, et c'est seulement à ce prix-là qu'on peut faire une expérience correcte en neuroimagerie. Et souvent, d'ailleurs, un certain nombre d'erreurs qui ont été dénoncées par M. Valizer viennent du fait que le paradigme n'est pas bien contrôlé et ne serait pas accepté par le psychologue. Par exemple, parce que, tout simplement, il y a plus de mouvements oculaires dans une condition que dans l'autre lorsqu'il s'agit de paradigmes trop complexes, comme vous l'avez souligné. Donc, la psychologie joue un rôle essentiel et la neuroimagerie n'est qu'une des méthodes, finalement, de la psychologie.
Merci. Je vais donc passer la parole. Je vais te passer la parole pour te. Donc, je crois qu'il est raisonnable que l'on. Oui, c'est la dernière question. Je donnerai la parole à Christian Schmitt pour le mot de la fin.
Je voulais poser la question à M. Valizer parce que j'ai été déçu par son exposé. J'attendais un apport de la neuroéconomie à l'économie. J'ai trouvé une espèce d'esquisse programmatique pour un programme de recherche. Et la question que je voulais poser, je me suis demandé, est-ce que la médiation puisqu'il n'y a pas d'objectivité entre les aires corticales et l'activation psychologique, est-ce que la médiation idéale entre neuroéconomie et économie ne serait pas la psychoéconomie? Et la question que je voulais lui poser, mais il n'est plus là, je la pose à Stanislas Dehaene ou quelqu'un d'autre qui pourrait y répondre. Quels sont les apports fondamentaux qui ont permis à un psychologue de devenir un prix Nobel, les apports fondamentaux de Daniel Kahneman? Question élémentaire, pour laquelle je voudrais une réponse précise. Donc,
Bernard, est-ce que tu as une réponse rapide?
Je vais donner une réponse sociologique, de sociologie des sciences. C'est pas une réponse, c'est pas la réponse attendue non plus, mais je crois que d'un point de vue historique, effectivement, c'est le fait qu'il y a eu un dialogue possible entre un mathématicien économiste qui était Tversky et un expérimentaliste psychologue qui était Kahneman, en fait, et qu'ils ont poursuivi un dialogue sur longue période et des expériences correspondantes.
Je ne crois pas qu'on va pouvoir trancher ce problème. Je vais donc, il est à peu près 7 heures. Christian, si tu veux avoir le mot de la fin,
Juste une réponse à la question d'avant, qui nous ramène à Kahneman. Kahneman pense, lui, il l'a écrit plusieurs fois, qu'il y a une rupture sur la notion d'utilité. C'est-à-dire que la fonction d'utilité des modernes, les dérivés des ordres de préférence, c'est une fonction logique. La notion d'utilité est ce qu'il appelle une dérivation mathématique d'un ordre de préférence. Alors qu'il dit, Bentham et Edgeworth, c'était un tout autre programme de recherche, c'était un programme de recherche de l'utilité expérimentée, liée à la psychologie et précisément à une école psychologique de l'époque qui était la psychophysique. C'est les travaux de Wundt, de Fechner, qui intéressaient Edgeworth et Jevons et Bentham. Donc je pense qu'il y a eu en fait dans l'histoire une retrouvaille. On a retrouvé avec Kahneman un vieux programme ancien, modernisé par des techniques, par du progrès scientifique et sur l'expérimental et par les méthodes d'imagerie. Mais il y a eu une sorte de rupture et un retour aux sources. Alors, une dernière remarque sur moi, ce qui m'a intéressé ici, je le dis franchement, c'est un paradoxe. C'est-à-dire que finalement, la neuroimagerie et les travaux de neuro nous ramènent au caractère interactif, social et parfois collectif de l'économie. Ce qui est étrange, puisque à l'origine, on aurait plutôt pensé que les travaux de neuroimagerie, c'était des travaux strictement individuels qui ne pouvaient pas être généralisés. Or, l'hypothèse d'Elias, mais même quelques remarques, et le dialogue qui s'est inséré entre vous, il semble qu'aujourd'hui, la neuroéconomie, elle est intersociale. Elle est avec la théorie de l'esprit, et donc elle ramène l'économie à ses sources, à ses origines sociales et interactives, ce qui est un chemin détourné, mais très excitant.
Je crois que c'est le mot de la fin là, qui est parfait, parce que les retrouvailles, pardon, tu voulais rajouter un mot. Moi, j'aime beaucoup ce terme des retrouvailles entre les deux disciplines.
Je ne voulais pas rajouter un mot, mais comme vous avez évoqué la question de Fechner, de l'utilité, je voudrais juste dire qu'il y a toute une série d'études en économie actuellement qu'on appelle l'économie du bonheur, ou happiness, et j'aimerais bien savoir ce que la neuroéconomie pourrait nous dire sur le bonheur. On va conclure là-dessus. Je remercie tous les orateurs et tous les participants. Et je ne sais pas, au prochain colloque sur ce sujet.
Aux prochaines retrouvailles.
Merci beaucoup.
À très bientôt.